Hello, my spooky pickles. So today we have a twisted fairy tale for you. So most fairy tales, it's the evil stepmother, isn't it? That's the mean one. That's really the bad guy. But what if I told you in this story, actually the real mother? But in the Grimm's version, they changed it to the stepmother because they thought it'd be more palatable, and they didn't think people would enjoy reading that a real mother would want to harm her actual child. So, today we're doing Snow White. I don't have any dresses that look like Snow White, so I'm half Evil Queen and half, I don't know, Forest Fairy. I don't have a Snow White outfit, and I can't afford new outfits for every video. If you want me to, send me some money. I'll do it. Well, I'm working with what I've got. Y'all know it ain't a lot. So, single working mum. What do you want from me? I'm going to get into it because many notes, multiple pages. I think I need to invest in like a larger book because these size ones just aren't cutting it. They're not big enough. Anyway, there's a historical real person that I found that I think may have inspired some versions of Snow White as well. So I'm going to talk about her first and then actually get into the story of it. So the real person who I'm going to start talking about, that sort of, there's elements to her and her story that replicate Snow White that I've kept coming up a lot in my research, so I thought I'd mention her, She's called Countess Margarita von Waldeck, and she was born in 1533, and she died in March of 1554, so she wasn't very old at all when she died. 20, maybe 21. If anyone knows my mental maths is off, correct me, feel free, I don't care. I know I suck at maths. 2021 she died, which is kind of sad. But we're going to get into that. So, she ended up getting sent off by her parents to originally live with her uncle, and then they moved her on to live in the court of Mary of Hungary. So I assume she's a queen because she's married to a king. But yeah, in Mary of Hungary's court, she was a part of that. And her and Prince Philip from, Snow White, actually fell in love. Now, I don't know if he fell in love with her, they had a crush, or they both mutually fell in love. It's hard to find concrete evidence of that, but basically, he was talking about wanting to marry her. And from the sketches I've seen of her, she does look very pretty, actually. So I can't blame him, she was pretty. So yeah, but his parents weren't happy because she was Lutheran and they were Catholic. And I mean, in these days it might be an issue, it might not, but in those days it really was an issue. Also, she wasn't like important enough to have made like a really good political match, so they weren't keen on the idea. And it was said that his father had her poisoned. She wrote home not long before she died saying how she'd come down with something and she wasn't feeling well, and then she died. And if the prince's parents don't like you, that's quite probable. So that's the whole, well, not princess, but someone upper class moving away to a castle and becoming ill and dying. And the dwarf element is actually mentioned in this story because her father, owned some copper mines, and apparently, this is really sad and messed up, it wasn't dwarves, it was children that worked in the mines because they were obviously smaller, but then they create deformities because they were so crouched over and like into small spaces, so they wouldn't develop properly. So as a result of working in the mines, so that's where the whole dwarves element of her story comes into it. I found as well there's a Scottish version. There's a Scottish version of Snow White, which is fascinating. I forgot to write down any dates though, so I'm sorry, Pickles. If you really are a date person, just comment in the comments that I suck at dates and you want more details. I'm sorry, if you watched me before, you know what I'm like. I get excited and I forget to write down dates. I'm amazed I remembered the Countess's date of birth. I get excited by the story. This is why we're all really here, let's be honest. So, it's called Golden Tree, Silver Tree, and the Queen, Silver Tree, and Princess Snow White is Gold Tree. So when I say Silver Tree, I mean the queen, like evil queen. And when I say Gold Tree, I mean Snow White. So yeah, they're walking. Now, I found different versions. Some say a pond and some say a well. I'm going to say a pond just because it makes more sense. They was walking by a pond or a lake, and I don't know why she gets the urge to ask a trout. But the queen asks a trout, who's the prettiest lady in the kingdom. And it says pretty much that she is for now, but that it is Gold Tree, isn't it? That's, yeah, sorry, I'm awful that. It's pretty much Snow White that is going to surpass her, and this makes her very upset. You know, so in this story, let me see. Yeah, she says to her husband, I will never be well unless she has a gold heart and is allowed to eat it. So she's basically mourning to her husband, her Gold Tree's dad, that I will never be well unless I can eat your daughter's heart because she's going to be prettier than me one day. Ooh, but this one is a good dad, because in some fairy tales the dad are a bit shady. Gonna say it. But this one, he cares about his daughter, so he sends her away to protect her and to marry a prince in a different kingdom. Well done to the dad. Also, in the story, this prince isn't particularly problematic, so I'm just going to go with him. I'm going to give him the points. He gets the dad brownie points. So she goes off to live with the prince and he's happy. Let me find my notes. Sorry. So yeah, so he gives her a goat's heart to eat. Most stories it's a boar. In this one it's a goat's heart. So she's all happy thinking that the girl's dead. And she's eating a heart. And she's not about, so she's fine. But then she asks the trout again. I don't know why she keeps finding this trout. I don't know why she's talking to fish. There's a lot of fairy tales where fish are important and magical. So there you go. But again, it says, no, she's still alive and she's beautiful, and this really enrages Silver Tree. So she asks her husband for a boat to go and visit the daughter. Now, why the king hasn't clocked on that she realises that the daughter's still alive and she wants to visit her, and she has no ill intention, even though she wanted to eat her heart. Either way, she ends up with a boat and she goes to visit Golden Tree. And when she sees her appearing, she says to the servants that how nervous and scared she is. And the prince at this time is away hunting, because you'll find that the prince is hunting a lot in this story. He's away hunting. So she says to the servants, I'm very scared. I don't trust my stepmother. So they hide her in the bedroom. But when the mother or stepmother gets there, she's like, oh, no, I want to apologise. I've been so rude. Can I just kiss you on the hand? But she won't come out the room, so she convinces her to poke one of her fingers out of the keyhole lock thing, to just like, oh, let me just give you a kiss on the hand. And as she pokes her finger out the lock, she stabs it with a poisonous thorn. I don't know what everyone's expecting. Yeah. But the poor girl falls into a coma. And the prince is devastated and he doesn't want to bury her, so she does end up in a glass coffin in the story. But just in a different room of the house. And the prince remarries. And one day his new wife number 2, she doesn't have a name, by the way. I don't know, I feel like I should name her. What should I name her? They're all named after trees. And I don't know, Selena, because it sounds pretty. So Selena finds her. And she notices the thorn in her finger and takes it out. And she wakes up. So now she's like, oh no, the prince now has 2 wives. Shall I leave? And the prince is like, no, I'm just going to keep you both. So, okay. Well, I'm not judging. Whatever. You're a prince. But then, guess who talks to the magical trout again? This queen. She's got a thing for fish. And she finds out that she's not dead after all. So she goes back. And the prince is hunting again. Just leaving these women defenseless, apparently. So she goes back. And this time she tries to poison Golden Tree. And she offers her some wine. But Selena, who I've named second wife, she doesn't trust this queen. Good for her. I wouldn't either. So she says, oh no, it's it's customary that the person who's offering the drink takes the first sip. So she does. And she's just trying to like pretend sip it, but she knocks her arm. So it makes her swallow some of the liquid. And it kills her. So good on wife number 2, Selena, for doing that. And then apparently they actually live happily ever after. Both the wives and the prince. But to be fair, I'm sure Silver Tree is quite happy to have been saved. So he's happy to be friends with Princess Selena, Queen Selena. I don't know what you call her. She's wife number 2. Queen consort, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, they're happily ever after in whatever kind of relationship they choose to have. Doesn't say any more than that, and I don't wish to go any more into that either. That's their personal fairy tale business. So that was that story, and I found that really interesting because it wasn't a mirror, it was fish, and actually someone was there to stick up for, well, Snow White's golden tree, and the dad actually tried to protect her, which I love because that doesn't always happen in fairy tales. Then we have the good old Brothers Grimm version, of course we do. So it's quite similar to the Disney with obvious differences. So obviously the Queen, it's her real mother, but she's sewing one day, watching the snow fall, and she pricks her finger and 3 drops of blood hit the snow. And I don't know why. This should be a big red flag. She looks at the blood on the snow and thinks, oh, that looks so pretty. I would love to have a daughter with lips as red as blood and skin as fair as snow. And she's looking out the window and there's like a thick ebony frame and, you know, hair as dark as ebony. And she longs for this daughter. And she actually gets a wish. She actually gets this daughter. But as she grows older, she starts to look more and more beautiful. And the Queen, her mother, starts to get all insecure and asks the bloody mirror. And this mirror is savage though, by the way. Says, yes, my Queen, you're beautiful, it's true. But Snow White is 1,000 times more beautiful than you. Are you trying to get the princess killed, mirror? Wash your deal, you shady mirror. Why would you antagonize the Queen like this? And she loses her bits, apparently. She loses her mind about it. So she gets a huntsman, says you need to go and kill her and bring back her lungs and her liver. Now, I looked this up. And lungs are supposed to represent life and breath, like your breath of life and your life force, and in some cases your soul. Apparently that lives in your lungs in fairy tales. And the liver is something to do with life force because like it cleans your blood. So that's why she wanted those. But he has a change of heart because he's looking at this poor, innocent, like young girl, and he's like, no, just run away and I'll make some more for the Queen. And he brings back a boar organs. In some stories it says a white boar, and I don't know if that's representative of something, I don't know. But not all say white boar, so take whichever one you want and interpret it how you want to. I'm not going to tell you how to interpret everything. So she runs through the woods and comes across the dwarf's cottage, and she finds like 7 plates and drinks on the table, and she eats a tiny little bit of each one, so it doesn't disturb her, doesn't disturb the house she's entered, And then she finds 7 beds and falls asleep in one of them. And when the dwarves come home, they find her asleep, and in this version, unlike the Disney version, they let her sleep. Good on them. They let her sleep because they feel sorry for her. And in the morning, they're like, okay, who are you? What's going on? She tells them the story. They say, okay, you can stay here, but you have to help look after the house, cook and clean and all that. So we'll protect you, keep safe. You can live here. You just have to help us in return. That all seems fine. That all seems fair. I think it seems fair. So that's what she does. And of course the Queen finds out because the bloody mirror. What's the mirror's the she with Snow White, man? You're trying to get the poor girl killed. I think at this age, I think she's like... Sorry, allergies. I think she's like 8. What the hell? She's already had to get through the woods after the threat of being killed by a woodsman. A huntsman. You know what I mean. Anyway, this mirror tells the Queen now she's still alive, past the 7 mountains or hills, depends on the version you read, in the dwarf's cottage. So she comes up with a plan. And she waits for the dwarves to leave the house. She visits Snow White and says, oh, I've got these beautiful laces. Would you like some lace? She's like, I'm sorry, I can't let you in. She's like, no, you don't have to let me in. You just have the lace. So she takes this lace and she's like, oh, I used to work in courts of royalty, and the way you're lacing your bodice up isn't correct. Would you like me to show you? And Snow White says, yeah, of course, because she's thinking, oh, okay, someone's trying to be kind. And of course, the Queen, her mother, who is disguised at this point, obviously, she doesn't look like her. She looks like just an older woman selling her wares. She's lacing the bodice up and she's pulling tighter and tighter, and until she can't breathe, and she's basically cutting off her oxygen supply, and she passes out, falls on the floor. So the Queen thinks that she's dead or she's gonna die. I'm gonna leave her. She goes off to the castle. The mirror's like, yeah, you're beautiful again, because up to this point, like, she's about to die. And then the dwarves come home and see her pretty much passed out, pretty much not breathing on the floor. They see that the bodice is too tight, cut it off, she can breathe again, all's good. Eventually, again, the Queen finds out because the bloody mirror is shady. So she's like, right, what can I do now? And the dwarves say, don't let anyone in the house. So Snow's like, yeah, okay, sorry, I won't. But again, the Queen puts on a different disguise, looks all lovely and sweet and innocent, and brings these combs, really beautiful combs, and shows Snow White. Says, oh, you don't have to let me in, just look at the combs. And she's like, yeah, it's really very pretty. And she's like, would you like me to just brush your hair for you? I don't even have to come in, like, you can stand at the doorway. And of course she does, because she's like a young child and she's naive. So she brushes her hair, and the comb poisons her, and she drops down, passes out. And if it's left in her hair, she'll eventually die. But of course, the dwarves come, see the comb, put 2 and 2 together, take the comb out, revive Snow White. She's okay again. The dwarves like, you cannot let anyone in. You've got to stop letting people in. This isn't safe. I don't know why Snow White is so... She has no self-preservation, bless her. Like, she knows her own mother wants to kill her. She's already been twice now assassinated. Do you think she learns a lesson? We all know she doesn't. So, again, the Queen finds out, and she really loses it now. She's like, right, okay, I've got to think of something. I've got to think of a really good way to trick her. And then, obviously, the poisoned apple comes into play. And it's very clever in the story, because she only poisons half the apple. So, in the story, it says it's white, but I think green makes more sense, because you don't get a white apple. So I'm just going to say green, because in my head that makes more sense. So the red apple side is the poison side, and the green side is the clean side. Check me out. Poet, and I didn't know it. So she goes and disguises herself as an old beggar lady and says, oh, I work in an orchard. My family, my husband's a farmer. We have an orchard. Would you like an apple? I'm just going to let you have an apple as a gift. And obviously at this point, Snow White's a bit more wary. And she's like, oh, I really shouldn't. But the Queen's smart. She's like, okay, to prove it's safe, I'll have a bite of the apple so you know it's safe. And of course, she takes a bite from the clean side that's not poisoned. And she says, look, see, it's completely fine. Do you want to take a bite of the apple I've eaten from so you know it's safe? And of course, most people would think this is safe, and Snow White is still young, so she takes a bite. And we all know the story. She falls down in a death-like slumber, in other words, a coma. The Wicked Queen runs away home, all happy with herself because she's killed her own daughter. The dwarves come home and they can't revive her. They can't see the apple in her throat. They don't know what's causing it, and they're just very upset and very sad. And they don't want to bury her, so they make this beautiful glass coffin for her and put it on the hill next to the house so she can be out in the sunshine. And one day a prince comes. There's different reasons in different versions as to why the prince comes, but a prince comes and falls in love. Now also, I'm quite disturbed because this is a young child. Some say she ages but doesn't grow because the coffin, and some versions the coffin sort of grows with her. I don't know what crazy magic these dwarves have, growing glass coffins, but anyway, it's like an IKEA bed that grows with you, you know, those toddler beds. Anyway, the prince, who I think is aged at 19 in most versions, has fallen in love with a child. I'm not going to get into why that's so wrong, but she looks so beautiful and delicate. He just falls in love with her, and he's like, I really would love to take her home. I'll take good care of her. I'll make sure she's looked after so well. She's dead, but you know, I'll keep the glass coffin really well looked after. I'll keep it in the sun and I'll cherish her. And eventually the dwarf's like, nah, bro, that's weird. Well, eventually he talks him down. I don't know if he bribes them. I don't know if he threatens them. I don't know if he just presses them that much and, like, convinces them of his love for this dead little girl. They're like, right, bro, take her. Fine, just go away. So he takes her back to his castle. Now, some versions of the story are different. So one of the story's versions is one of the servants sort of drops the coffin on the way, and that dislodges the apple from her throat. The other version is that she's in the prince's castle, and he makes the servants carry her from room to room that he's in, and I'd get annoyed as well. And one day, one of the servants gets annoyed and slaps her. Again, two versions of this. One is around the face, and one is on the back, but she's in a coffin, so it's like, have you propped up? Open a coffin, propped up a dead princess, slapped her on the back and laid her back down? I don't know. Either way, she gets a slap. She's dead, it's not her fault. I'll go at the prince. Well, I suppose she can't. She gets a slap, but that dislodges the poisonous apple, and she's alive again. And, being very confused as to what the hell's going on and where she is, and seeing a prince going, oh, I've been in love with you for so long, and it's this amazing miracle. He asks her to marry him, and of course she says yes, either because she's naive and thinks it's a fairy tale, because it is a fairy tale, but, he's like, yeah, you're a prince, okay. Or she's just like, well, I don't really have a choice. I've lost my friends, the dwarfs. My mother wants to kill me and has nearly succeeded, so I best say yes. I don't know which thought is going through her head. Also, is she still 8? Does she still look 8? I don't know. I'm very disturbed by the whole thing, to be honest. Come on, Prince, you can do better. Anyway, they have dinner that night and they make plans to get married the next day. I don't know how quick they can put together a wedding, but anyway. And they invite lots of people in the kingdom. And of course, the Wicked Queen's invited because she's a queen. And she doesn't know that it's her daughter because she thinks she's dead. So she goes and she finds out it is actually Snow White. And she's very hungry. But then Snow White sees that it's her. And this is so gruesome, this bit. It's sort of deserved, but like, whoa, that's a bit overkill. So, as punishment for what the mother, the evil mother, queen, does to Snow White, they get some hot iron shoes, like they heat them in the fireplace till they're red hot, and they make the queen wear them and dance until she dies. That's, I know Hocus Pocus make people dance, and she says dance until you die, but they only really dance until the next day. But no, they make the queen dance in these red hot iron shoes until she dies. Wow. And then Snow White and the Prince live happily ever after. Apparently. I don't know how happily ever after I could live after seeing that, because, like, they see that and it's got to be quite gruesome and smelly and not pleasant. But as soon as she's died, they just sort of clean up the blood and the mess and they air the castle out and they carry on with the merriment. So yeah. I'm trying to think, do I have any more versions? There are so many as well. So many versions. But I would be, well, we're on 23 minutes already and I've only done 2 versions and 1 real account. So, there was a Neil Gaiman version that's called Snow Glass Apples that was really interesting that I heard of. It's basically Snow White is a vampire and the stepmother's actually very nice, but Snow White bites her, the point of Venus on her palm, which is like represents life, and the stepmother has her killed for good reason, but she manages to come back alive and kills her stepmother, and that's pretty messed up. So if anyone wants to read that twisted, messed up version, that's out there. I also want to make an honourable note of, I can't remember the name of it or the author, because I got so angry after I read it, I threw the book across the room. I got so angry because I was like, really? That's the ending you're going to give me? So basically, pretty much same as the Disney version. Dwarves, apple, prince. The prince in this, though, I think the one in this one is a bit dodgy because he wants to marry a child or someone that looks like a child, because she's not, even if she's aged, her body still looks like an 8 or a 9-year-old. At very best 14. Very, very best. So I'm quite disturbed. But I'm going to give this one a pass compared to this prince. This Prince Philip can do one. So he's taking the glass coffin home, and in the carriage gets bumped and dislodges the chunk of apple from Snow White's throat. And he's like, oh, we're so happy because you're actually alive and you're so beautiful and I actually get to be with you now, blah, blah, blah. And they're all happy. And it's a really long trek back to his kingdom, so they stop in like a really nice inn. And he's like, well, let's get to know each other and then we'll get married once I get back to my kingdom. Oh, lovely, blah, blah, blah. But because he's actually been in love with a corpse, or however many days it took for him to convince the dwarves to take her, he hasn't attributed any personality to this dead girl, basically, and she's now alive, and she has a personality, and she is a person. And because she's, I think in the story it is 3 times she's nearly died as well, so she's like, I really want to live, so she's like enjoying herself and having a bit of a party in the inn and getting a bit rowdy and drinking a little bit and having fun, and the prince doesn't like that because that is not princess-like behaviour. And then back in the room, you think most men would like this. They get a bit down and dirty. This is the best way I can put it on this kind of platform. And well, he likes that because, you know, misogyny. He doesn't like how much she's enjoying it. So it's like, okay, you're quite happy to have unmarried sex even though you're going to get married the next day or the next few days. And you're judging her for that even though you're doing it. But not only that, only you should be enjoying it and you're angry that she's enjoying it too much. So, not just that, like, that's like pretty, like, oh, come on, man. But the worst bit is, because she's so spirited and wants to love life and live and be happy, you know what he decides to do? My spooky pickles, do not be this prince, do not be this man. Because he gets the chunk of apple that came from her throat, and he takes it down to the kitchen of the inn and gets them to squish it and smush it up and put it in some juice. And he shoots her the juice. So she becomes a living, basically a half-dead, half-alive corpse for him to just carry around and do what he wants with forever. And that is the point at which I flung the book across the room. And that's how the story ends. With her being put back in the sleeping death because he didn't want a wife that enjoyed sex as much as he did and that wanted to live. That's quite sad. The next, I'm going to do an honourable mention because this is my favourite music video. And the song isn't actually about this, it was meant for a boxing song, but I think they made it work for the music video, and the music video is so cool. So it's Rammstein's Son, and it's basically a twisted fairy tale-esque Snow White, but she's the aggressor in this. The dwarves are working for her in the mines, and they're mining gold dust. That's not a euphemism. In the film it is. Well, the music video, the gold dust is a very different kind of, I think basalt's kind of dust. She's snorting the gold dust. And these massive big apples coming from the tree that they're shining and giving her, and basically, like, in some scenes she's loving on them and cuddling and kissing them, and in other scenes she's basically slapping them if they've not give her diamonds that are bigger enough and pretty enough or enough gold dust to make her happy. I think it's just a different, very twisted, messed up take on the cycle of abuse, basically. Very obvious cycle of abuse, but they've spun it on the head and made Snow White the abuser because she's so pretty. And also in these stories, not once does it say she's a good person or she's kind. In fact, she seems quite naive. Some versions she's older, some versions she's younger, so you can forgive certain, naiveties for a young child. But the fact that she quite enjoyed having her mother dance to death in burning iron shoes and then parties after is quite, yeah, I don't have any words for that. I don't think that's particular. Don't think the Queen was a good person. I don't know if I'd enjoy watching that. I think that put a dampener on my wedding day. Also, nowhere it states that she's a good or kind person ever. And in the version I told you about where the prince basically poisons her again, she's quite rebellious actually. She's like, it's kind of cool, but she's definitely not good. She's not bad. She's just chaos, basically. But because she's like probably adolescent, she's like 19, I think, in this story or roundabout. So she's just a chaotic teenager. Not bad, not good. So I just thought it was so interesting, the position they gave her in the music video. But I think the overall message in each story is how society cages people. Like, each person's put in their own cage. Like, society cages women based on their beauty. And what can you offer the world? Well, you can only offer them beauty. You'd be stuck there. And this is the only power you have in the world. So when the queen thinks she's losing this power, this beauty, that's who she is. That's her identity. You know, she's not the most beautiful person, the most beautiful queen. What is she? And she needs to eliminate any threat to that, even to the detriment of her own daughter, which is really sad. And the dwarves are sort of placed in the caregiver role, like the protectors, the provider role. And even in the music video song, like, they're the protectors, the providers. They give and they give and they give to Snow White. She just takes and takes and takes and is abusive. And I think what we can take from any version of the Snow Whites is to learn from toxic cycles and patterns and break society's norms. Sometimes that's a good thing, you know. Don't let society trap you into thinking your only worth is to be a protection provider or to be beautiful, and that's all you're worth. If you're not beautiful, then you're not worth as much. Your worth is less than that beautiful girl's over there. Or if you can't provide as much and bring as much gold and jewels or protection, then you're not worth as much and you deserve to be beaten, like the Snow White does in the Sun music video. If you haven't seen it, I'd watch it. Like, it's messed up, but look at the channel you have landed on. My favourite things are always the weirdest, darkest versions of everything. I don't know what's wrong with me. Maybe a psychiatrist will tell me one day. But, yeah, I think it's just a message to be self-aware and to not place your value in how others see you. Place it in yourself and live for yourself. Because if you live trying to please other people, they'll poison you. Basically, you can't please other people. Like, because even if the Snow White in the story where the prince poisons her had to try to please him, because I think for a little while she sort of does, like, through the night, and she sort of realises it's a losing cause, so she just has her own fun. But yeah, you're never going to be able to please someone if you're not being yourself, if you're not being authentically you. It's not you they really like. And some people, if they're going to find fault, they'll find fault no matter what you're going to do. And if you are stuck in a toxic cycle or pattern or relationship, please, please, please seek help. And however that looks for you. And if it is a relationship, please do safely seek help. There's many charities. Feel free to DM me. I don't care. I have resources, but I'm not about to name them all right now. But yeah, if you are stuck in a toxic cycle or pattern or relationship, I'm not judging you at all. But get the help you need. And I think that's what this is really addressing. Because a lot of the Grimm's fairy tales were told orally as traditions in different communities in the villages to keep stories alive, and there was meanings to these stories, and they just put it all in a book, and it was like fairy tales for children. The first edition was not for children, and then the second one, it was, they PG'd it up a bit more, and even then they said, like, be careful how you tell these stories to children, but it was the messages in them. So that's where it all comes from, these oral traditions that the Grimms wrote down because they didn't want to lose their German heritage and the storytelling and the lessons. I'm going to do a whole video one day about the Grimms and why they did what they did, because I think they're amazing. They were librarians at one point as well, and they worked in a university. So, but of course it's quite obvious because they wrote down things, and not everyone at that time could read or write as well as they could, and some couldn't read or write at all. But yeah, they was trying to preserve the German heritage, so that's why they started to write down these fairy tales. And a lot are still being lost to history now, actually, which is kind of sad. But this is why I'm doing this channel as well. Like, I want to keep it alive. It's a very different version to the Brothers Grimm, but I always, if it is a Brothers Grimm tale, I will always reference them because I think it's important. I will be doing some Hans Christian Andersen ones soon, though, so keep an eye out for them. I've waffled on now for 35 minutes. I'm going to let you go, my spooky pickles. I hope you enjoyed this video. You enjoyed this video. I hope you got something from it. Don't let anyone put you in a box. Feel free to shove any said box up anyone's ass. Don't accept apples from strangers. Combs or laces. And yeah, don't be caged by society's expectations. Try to be a good person. And try not to look at kids, for fuck's sake. Yeah, be better than the prince. Don't be Prince Philip in this situation. This Prince Philip, in all versions, he sort of tries to do the right thing in some, but he sucks in all of them. Don't be Prince Philip. Okay. Enjoy the rest of your day, my spooky pickles. I'll see y'all very soon.